Well, yes, indeed. You're hearing our voices from Abuja, where it is 26 degrees centigrade. Humidity is 75%, so it's quite humid here in Abuja. But the image you see right now is pictures from Gombe State, a place called Rotimi in Gombe. We're going to be going live there much later today, and so just to have a sneak peek of how it does look like, because when we do start, you may just see a lot of the interior, but this is how it looks at the moment.
A very interesting sight, Chamberlain. A very tightly packed city, and I think this might come as a wonderful surprise for those who haven't been really up north, especially to the northeastern region of Nigeria, where Gombe State is situated. A lot to learn about that particular state, but just to also mention that it did really well in Nigeria's ease of doing business in the ranking of the states. Gombe State surprisingly came first. Maybe not so surprising, but you know, it definitely shows that they are ready to do business. And just in case you're wondering what it looks like, that certainly is a skyline for you. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maufe Ogunyosef.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Chamberlain. So, but it's 29 degrees there in Gombe at the moment, so a little hotter than Abuja, the capital, but humidity is 10%, so, you know, not as
so
much
it might feel
as
better,
it is here.
as a matter of fact.
It might feel better. You know what they say about, you know, rural areas in terms of the atmospheric condition, how the air is a little more not as dense as the urban areas where a lot of industries, you know, all of those fossil fuels. But there you go. So much later, we will be going live from Gombe today. All right, so straight away, let's talk to you about some of the events that will be going on today. So look at that. There's going to be ministerial, you know, that ministerial performance that they've talked about, the performance bond that they signed. Well, the petroleum resources will be introspecting today. So they will be talking about some of those deliverables. Well, I'd like to even ask you out there, what do you think about that ministry? Do you think they performed in terms of, and one of the measuring points for lots of people out there, for that ministry, the only one they know is what?
Petrol.
Diesel, petrol. There you go. Gas.
The fuel in their houses is all they know.
Yeah.
And that's fair enough. I mean, it is essentially how do you measure impact? Is it not how you feel it?
Yeah.
It's certainly about how you feel it. So the questions are certainly valid. Yes, we want our Ministry of Petroleum to also be able to increase whatever it is they're bringing into the nation's coffers, and to ensure that there is efficient use of our resources, of our natural resources, and that there's accountability, which is one area that we are still struggling with. I mean, transparency
very key
in the oil industry has been quite a challenge for many years. Yes, they're trying to break the jinx, but they haven't quite gotten through just yet, because as far as some people are concerned, there is still too much abracadabra going on with the numbers in the oil sector. And can they stop oil theft? It's a big question. I know they'll say that's not for them alone. That's for them, security agencies, and perhaps Nigerians, you know, in that particular area. But that's certainly within their purview. So quite a lot to be introspecting on, and quite a lot to be talking about when the minister, that's the Minister of State, I believe. Yeah. It's interesting that the president is the Minister of Petroleum himself, so I wonder whether he'll be joining on this introspection.
I doubt it. I really do doubt it.
That certainly will be
They'll just report to him much later.
Interesting. Well, certainly we will take the Minister of State and maybe the GMD of the NNPC, but he says ministerial performance, so I imagine that that's just the minister alone, the Minister of State alone. Well, also happening today is a bit of politics with the PDP, the People's Democratic Party, will also be meeting today, from what we understand. Chairmanship position, Edo and Ondo state elections is up on the agenda. Well, the PDP certainly, they will also be needing a bit of introspection. Maybe not a bit, maybe a lot of introspection. And with all that is going on within and amongst political parties right now, you know, they certainly might be in prime position if they position themselves properly to be able to gain more members, with talks of people looking at the SDP. And then Labour Party looks like all is not well within it. Even the APC, the behemoth right now, also seems to have its own challenges. But certainly all has not been well with the PDP for some time now, as some of its big wigs, even though they are in the party, are party members sometimes only by name. The question will be, where truly does their loyalty lie? So
lots of questions will be there for the PDP as well, in terms of what kind of opposition have they been? Have they held up the stake as much as the people expect them to? Because in a democracy, you do need different groups putting different units on their toes to ensure that things are done and not expect that there will be a stroll in the park. After all, the president did say, don't pity me. So he expects them to put him on his toes. So is the party doing that? I guess they'll talk to themselves and find out. After all, guys, in case you don't know, did you see Senegal's elections?
Oh.
And who emerged as president in Senegal?
Quite a very pleasant surprise. When I say pleasant, pleasant in the sense that it was peaceful. After all that, had happened before the elections, it was very refreshing to see that Senegal continues to maintain its pole position as one country where democracy has been unbroken and where it hasn't experienced any coup, civilian or military.
So, good example. And the 44-year-old gentleman is set to become the president. So he seems to be coasting. I know Nigerians to think, could that have been us? Should that have been?
44 years old. Certainly food for thought for us.
So you see, don't give up. Just don't. If it's happening, it's in West Africa, by the way. No, not too far away, so there you go. All right, so that's not just what will happen today. You also do have business that we're talking about. Tourism. Is tourism the new deal? Are we going to offer up a lot more in that sector? They will be talking to us.
Not trembling with all of the sights and sounds we have been showing here.
So why not? There's a lot of it, actually.
Yeah.
And so many areas in this country to go to where you can just ask so many things. The Minister of Health was talking about so many fantastic hospitals here that are specialists.
Indeed.
Specializing in different areas of cancer treatments. Many don't know.
So why not health tourism? Why not tourism for leisure? I think it just needs to be a better narrative around security and also infrastructure provision.
Okay, so, all right, then on to tell you what do the dailies have for us today. Let's take you through some of the dailies this morning. I will starting with Leadership newspaper. Banditry as a theme. Sheikh Gumi has questions to answer. FG declares. There's a big lead here. Security agencies invite him. Army hands over 131 school children to Governor Sani. 6 pupils hospitalized. Insists no ransom was paid to bandits. I know that narrative has been going back and forth about what's going on with this. So 131 plus 6. So there you go. That's a big lead. And by the way, above the list story, you also see Senegal. Opposition's fire set to become president. Can you imagine him sitting beside some other presidents? He's a 44-year-old.
Well, the hair on his head is still very black. I hope it remains so after. The work of president is not the easiest. You see people entering the office with, very black hair, and then give them a year or two, you begin to wonder what exactly is in that office that turns them gray.
Oh, he'll be expected to hit the ground running, as we say here. How do you say it in French? Je sais pas.
Yeah.
Go on, please.
He just attempts to speak French. Je ne sais pas. That's what he said. Well, look at this. New Telegraph has this. Kaduna school children, 1 teacher died, 6 pupils hospitalized, says GOC, as Sani receives 131 pupils. So just in case you're wondering why that number is 131 instead of 137, as they said they had rescued 6 pupils right now in hospital, and we're hoping that they certainly will make it and recover very quickly alongside their teacher. Look at this: abducted school children not ransomed. That's according to the federal government. But there are big questions. When this sort of statement is made, people start to ask if they were not ransomed, was there any negotiation? Did bandits die in the process? I mean, they were forcefully taken. Are we arresting any of them? Big questions, really. These are the questions that are accompanying this statement. Abducted school children not ransomed. That's according to the federal government. Tinubu orders security agents to halt kidnapping. ACF calls for proactive measures. Kidnappings. Federal government invites Gumi for questioning, says he's not above the law. Okay? It's interesting that this is what is being reported, but I think we can play that again, and you can always make up your mind what it is that the Minister of Information was saying. Pages 24 and 29 is where we currently are, or the story currently is. You also have a number of other stories. ONSA, how Binance executive escaped from custody, is right there for you. And I hope this is not what it is, but this is it. CBN external reserves resume gradual decline from $34.45 billion. That's not what we want to hear. Sells $10,000 to each BDC as Naira firms up. So don't run away with the headline. Read the details. Yeah. Read the details at every point in time. Page 3 is where you'll see that story. And just in case you're wondering, NNPC's limited pact with marketers crashes ex-depot price. So should we be seeing a reduction in the price of TMS?
Why not?
You never can tell. You never can tell. But as I said earlier, don't run away with the headline. Read the story on page 8 of New Telegraph newspapers.
Well, they say certain things defy the laws of physics in this part of the world. They say what goes up never comes down.
In Nigeria,
prices
right?
Goes up, it go up, and they never. But thankfully, the exchange rate has been gaining. So kudos to all of them who are doing whatever it is that they're doing. They should do a lot more of that, because do your lot. But it's now up to us, we the people.
To effect
now, how come when they latch on to the so-called dollar and why the prices are up, now that it's coming down, everybody's mute. They're zipped up, not even zilch from all of them. You look to them, but you guys always spoke about the dollar. So what's the connection now? Then they look the other way. You see what we do to ourselves in this country? Anyways, go ahead and take a look at The Guardian. That's the next one. Electricity assets. Vandalism of 117 power towers costs 12.8 billion naira, threatens $7 billion loan. Wow. And then you get to see vandalization of electricity transmission line between January 2022 and March 2024. So you see, they give us some pictorial analysis of what this is about and what's going on here and where we should be turning our attention to if need be. And then one of the key figures here equally is poor wheeling capacity grade collapse. It keeps supply below 4,500 megawatts. So, Minister of Power, I hope you have an idea.
He has his work cut out for him.
Yes.
But, we're not an easy people either. I wonder how many countries have to deal with vandalism, especially of power lines. I mean, anytime I'm passing close to a transformer, I'm always very careful. I don't move too close to where it is. Then some people now have the effrontery to go there and vandalize or take away valuables or to, fold wires. No, there needs to be a lot more scrutiny in that
That's where the question comes in with NSCDC. I thought they're supposed to protect this kind of infrastructure.
Yeah.
So they need to ask themselves the question as well, because look, there's nothing wrong with government being a little tougher to ensure that if anyone is caught violating or vandalizing any of these kinds of facility, they should face the music squarely. With the full wrath of the law, anyone whatsoever.
Is that 12.8 billion?
12.8 billion.
That's a lot of money.
So this is no joke, and it's affecting us at the end of the day. You can't, because of a few selfish individuals who want to gratify themselves in the short term and then plunge the entire country into long-term sufferings. Totally unacceptable, I might add. That's the Guardian today, anyways.
Well, take a look at what the Vanguard has for you. NSA launches global manhunt as Binance official flees custody. A really scandalous story on the front page of Vanguard newspapers this morning. Seeks support of international community, Nigerians. So they're asking for the support of Nigerians, and also the international community says he escaped from lawful custody, arrest security personnel, so those who were in charge of him have also been arrested. How and Jawala beat security. We want safety of our officers, resolution of issues with Nigeria. That's according to Binance. Or maybe one of the ways they can begin to resolve issues would be to quickly return Mr. Anjawala if they know his whereabouts. Page 5 is where you'll find details right there. They're also focusing on the Okwama situation. Okwama killings, the target. Left displaced villagers return home. Niger Delta leaders beg Tinubu. That story is on page 25 of the paper. They also have a number of other stories. I know it's a Tuesday, but is it possible for us to take Mr. and Mrs.?
Of course. I mean, if it does the needful.
Well, Mrs. says this morning, she's talking to her husband. I overheard you telling your friend that no woman can take your place as the head of the family. If I give you 20,000 naira out of my salary, what am I? Well, Mr. says, a giver. And remember, they say, givers never lack. So, hello to all the givers out there.
Okay, there you go. All right, then. So, that wraps it up. We'll look at some of the dailies here this morning, but just some piece of unfortunate information or news here about Ondo State. So, news just in says that an aspirant of the 2024 governorship election in Ondo State under the platform of the APC, Dr. Paul Akeredolu, is dead.
Oh dear.
So that's a pretty sad one there. So we'll get you more details as we get that. So that's it. We'll look at some of the dailies here today. We're back in just a moment. Stay on with us.
Do you know that you can now print all your essential items for events without even having to leave your home? It's the Cash Print Combo Deal for all events.
Yes!
Weddings, conferences, birthdays, burials, etc. Starting from 495,000 naira only. You get 50 invites, 50 A2 size posters, 50 16-page brochures, 1 large backdrop banner, 1 roll-up banner, 50 jotters with pens, and 50 souvenir carrier bags. Whatever event you're planning, we can adjust to your budget and quantities. Just send your pictures and other information through WhatsApp, and we shall send a design for your approval. Approve your design, and we will produce with super high-quality digital print technology. We can even arrange delivery to your location. Call us now on 0913-156-5016 or 0812-794-9323 or visit our social media pages. Casprints, digital printing at super speed.
Africa's stories become world stories.
Every system of government has oligarchic tendencies.
Network Africa is your one-stop shop for news on the continent.
Cholera is highly dangerous and can kill within a day.
Join us weekdays at 4 p.m. right here on Channels Television.
I'm Ifeoma Williams, your guide on this transformative journey.
Welcome to Transform Her, the first of its kind on-air coaching program exclusively on Channels Television.
I define a product as that perfect thing that people are ready to part with their money for.
In a male-dominated environment, being required to uphold the position of leadership.
The good, the bad, the ugly, they all pull together to make you this woman and this person that you can be.
Join us in shaping the future of African female leadership as we provide practical resources for entrepreneurs and aspiring C-suite leaders. Every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. West African time, we bring you expert interviews, transformative coaching, and the tools you need for exponential personal and professional growth. Transform her, because it's time to unlock your potential and lead with purpose.
All right, so let's see if we could listen to the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris. He did speak about this particular scenario, the escape of the executive of Binance. This is on loop in my ear right now, guys. Okay, but we do have two gentlemen or three who are joining us here this morning. Mr. Mike Ejiofor, former director with the SSS, is here with us in the studios. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today. We also do have Olatubosun Abolanrewa, who is a security consultant, joins us virtually this morning. Good morning, and thank you for joining us as well on the program today. Then we will also, so let's start with both of you. But we'll also have another dimension in just a moment. But Mr. Ejiofor, I mean, yes, indeed, lots of questions already being asked about this, on this scenario. Lots of people trying to wrap their heads around what might have happened, but we do know there are clearly some operational lapses for this to have happened. Several questions about the handling of this by the NSA's office, and then the connection with immigration, what the federal government could have done upon knowledge that he has just escaped from custody, the Interpol connection, all of those just playing themselves out. So I know you must have gone through this time and again as a former operative. So what are the gaping holes that you've identified here since the horse has still bolted from the stable?
So many holes. First of all, it's not the NSA that investigate issues. He coordinates and advises the president. Now, the EFCC is the agency handling the prosecution, and he should have ordinarily been in their custody. Now, granted, without conceding that the NSA took custody of the suspect, he was left too loose. He had access to telephones. He was even taken to the mosque from where he escaped. So a lot of questions must be asked and answered.
So is it that when that happened and the NSA was lead in the entire scenario, agencies like the DSS, immigration, they don't ask questions as to what's going on with this? Is there anything we need to know? Should need be? Or everybody just says, well, it's up to the NSA to decide what he wants to do with it?
You know, there's a proverb in my place that you won't be so energetic or you have strength to walk, and you begin to beg people to assign you for a job. It's only the job assigned to the SSS that it does. It doesn't have the right of coming to, or any agency for that matter, doesn't have the right to begin to ask NSA, why did you not do this, or why did you do this?
No, not why. I mean, at the time that it was announced that he was arrested for, economic sabotage, which is a serious thing if eventually...
It's a crime against the state. I think we must draw a distinction with that.
Yes.
You have crimes against the state. Sabotage is one of them. You have subversion, espionage, insurgency, terrorism. These are cases that fall under the purview of the State Security Service. So ordinarily, it should have been referred to the SSS or the EFCC, which is also involved in investigating financial crimes, as it were, because of these Binance cases. So it's either the EFCC or the SSS that should have ordinarily handled this matter. But for whatever reason, I don't know. But for me, I look at two things responsible for this. It's either gross negligence on part of the operatives there, or compromise. But I think I will align more with compromise. My reasons are obvious. If you look at the time he allegedly escaped from custody, because he had access to phone, he could have made a lot of contacts. The time he has absconded from this, and the time he got to the airport and traveled, as being alleged, nobody knows whether he actually traveled through the airport. But that's the report we are getting.
Yeah, the report is that he went through the airport with his Kenyan
investigation,
passport.
Investigation will reveal that. So what I'm saying is that by the time they noticed that he has absconded, if there was no compromise, he would first of all go to his house. He wouldn't move from
his house where? In Nigeria or
in Nigeria? He wouldn't have moved from where he is to straight to the airport.
Why would he want to go to his house when he's supposed to be under watch?
I mean, when he escaped,
yeah,
he has a place he was staying.
So if I'm escaping, I won't go to my house first.
How would you then? If he has a passport, how would he get the passport?
But
how would he get?
Yeah, somebody will give it to him. I mean,
what about his clothing, his belongings?
I won't be thinking about that if I'm supposed to escape.
That will be the least of his concerns.
Even if I will just slippers and boxers, I don't mind. I'll get out of the place. That's the first thing that will come to mind.
It's a possibility, but I'm just telling. I'm not just creating scenarios that are most likely, before he got to the airport. The point I'm trying to make is that there was sufficient time from the time he absconded to the airport. It would take not less than 2 hours.
It depends on when the authorities got the information, though.
I mean, if not compromise, immediately it is noticed that the operatives guarding him must report to the
NSA office.
Not the superior officers around.
And then also quickly alert the airport authorities.
Exactly.
So there are big questions. I mean, even if, because this person was said to have, Mr. Anjawala, I know that one of the things when I heard the incident yesterday, one of the things I immediately had to do was go and cram the man's face. One of the things that, immediately one would think that they had to do was alert the security agencies, because even if, let's just paint a scenario that, okay, he didn't go back to the guest house, or whoever was aiding him met him at the mosque, the question then will be, the people who were guarding him, at what time were they alert? At what time did he say he wanted to go and pray? Is it a time that they know that another flight is close by to landing, and then they know that they can quickly plot their escape maybe within an hour or 2 hours, as the case might be? So they're very big questions to ask, But, I mean, you're not the first person to say that you suspect that, there could have been compromise rather than negligence.
The issues raised are very, very critical and vital. It's a whole mess.
It is scandalous.
Very scandalous. It's a national embarrassment. And if you look, if he's rearrested, perhaps we'll get to know the details of how he left that.
But I do know that one of the reasons why initially the authorities handled them with care, the Binance executives that they had arrested, was because when they came into the country initially, there was no real charge against them. It took the authorities a while, and even we found them following due process, going to the court to obtain 14 days detention warrants for them. And then I think there was also some conversation with these people who were saying they wanted to be interrogated within the embassies of their country. Mr. Anjawala, we understand, came in with a UK passport. So it would seem that they were also leveraging on diplomatic ground. So maybe that was why the authorities seemed a bit kind. But looking at the gravity, the enormity of what Nigerian authorities sought to extract from them, should we have been that, will I say, generous, compassionate with the terms and conditions that we granted these people for their holding?
I can tell you, I still can't come to terms what happened. And that's why it needs proper investigation. And incidentally, the Office of the National Security Advisor has also instituted investigation, and the people on duty have been arrested. They have some stories to tell us. And more stories, and I hope it doesn't open up kind of worms.
Well, if he opens it up, so be it. As a matter of fact, Mr. Tubosun, let's bring you in on this matter, because for the policing component here, because several people have spoken about the Interpol perspective and Interpol angle here. So what's your thoughts about, from the points, because the Minister of Information did say that much, that the government has alerted Interpol, we're in a manhunt for him now because he's a fugitive as it is now. So from the time that the government alerted Interpol that he had boarded his flight and escaped from custody here, isn't it possible that even before the plane touches ground wherever, whether Bejilis or anywhere else, Interpol authorities would have been there waiting to apprehend him and bring him back to this country? Or are we overthinking things here? I thought that's the way it works.
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. The moment that happens and a criminal or a suspect becomes a fugitive, and we have an idea or intelligence about his means of movement, which is within the fuselage of a flight, which is in air, is as good as being arrested, because it's actually going to land at a port of authority where we have cooperation with Interpol. Another question we now need to ask ourselves in order to answer your question correctly is, what is our Interpol cooperation with the country is going to? How fantastic is that? How quick did we communicate with them? They will pick him up there, they will detain him, and the necessary procedure needs to be followed. Now, the question that is really surprising me now is that the moment we knew that he's already in a plane going towards Kenya or wherever he's going, did our operative take another flight to go after him and go there straight? He's going to get there before them. They will have alerted everybody that needs to be alerted. But from all the information available to me right now, I don't have the nitty-gritty of this operation. So I don't want to be in a hurry to point accusing finger at the relevant authority, particularly Interpol. But there are a few things we really need to look at, because the road safety came out to tell us that every accident happened as a result of series of incidents. And there are a lot of questions to ask here. One of the biggest questions that is turning my head around now is the style of detention. Who is detaining who? Whose case is this? Are there strategic failure on the part of all the security agencies that are supposed to handle this? My colleague in the studio just mentioned that this is a case for EFCC. In Nigeria today, EFCC have one of the best and watertight custody for any suspect. Why was he not there? Another thing is, I really don't know how we do it here. Should a suspect have such freedom, a suspect of that magnitude, have a freedom as to say he wants to go and pray? There are praying facilities in the NSA facility. If he's in a cell or in a room, he could as well pray in that place. I'm suspecting the issue of a little bit of compromise, and I think somebody needs to be held accountable and responsible for this while we go forward in working on how to bring him back into custody.
Okay, well, I understand we also do have Group Captain Sadiq Shehu, former military officer who's also a security consultant, joining us virtually to get his perspective on this subject matter. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program as well. So go ahead and talk to us about your immediate thoughts on this subject matter, because, okay, so we'll see how we can get him to speak on this matter. But Mr. Joffo, interagency cooperation, this kind of scenarios, because when you talk about immigration, because the few conversation is that immigration, Minister of Interior, they all have questions to answer. And for instance, if people say, well, immigration should have flagged them. So the question is, was immigration notified about this such that they flag this name so that if he approaches, the name immediately pops up? So we don't know if that happened. From the look of things, for him to have gone through, it appears as though that didn't happen.
Well, it is the responsibility of the State Security Service to watch list people of security interest. But unless the SSS is handling the matter or another agency makes request, the SSS does not place people on watch list. So I believe that the man was not proper communication. There was no proper communication in terms of placing the man on watch list.
In this case, from the NSA's office.
Exactly, from the NSA's office. Because, and the NSA knows better. The office of the NSA knows better that this man should have been placed under watch. But I believe also, since they felt they had his passport, there was no way he could travel. But the information being revealed now is that he has 2 passports. And if he uses the alternate passport to travel, there's no way you can track him down if he's not placed on watch list. Even if he was placed on watch list and he has another passport with a different name, he could possibly travel to.
But with the same face?
The face is immaterial. People, if you go outside, you see people who look like you.
Yeah,
so
but biometrics, we know that the new passports
you
now.
Get the name,
yeah.
You get the name, match the name before the biometrics. Because if you are not satisfied with, you cannot just take name alone because we have people with similar names. I can have Mike of up to 10. But if you place that one and you now put the biometrics, you'll be able to know the exact person you are looking for. But if you don't have the name and just facials, it's going to be difficult.
Well, interesting. Well, I'm sure we have the biometrics for, for when he came in as a British citizen. And I'm sure that because what we understand is that he has dual citizenship.
Yes.
And that, the story we're hearing is that the second passport which he used was smuggled to him. I don't know, but just my own imagination is saying maybe it was smuggled to him in the mosque where he went to pray.
Under the watch of those who are supposed to be watching him?
Oh, well, maybe they gave him some freedom to go in the mosque and go and pray.
That's what they say, there's complicity.
Of course.
Perhaps, or maybe it was just too trusting. Because when you look also, sometimes people look at the mien of somebody and maybe they just think, no, this is not a threat. This is not it's not the kind. Maybe there was a misreading of, we don't know under whose custom, who was holding him captive. Maybe there was a misreading of his threat level assessment.
There is no way. You are a suspect, and you are a person of interest. If you are in custody, you are in custody. You are not given such amenities and facilities like telephone. You can use it to cause a lot of havoc, and that's exactly what happened in this case. He had access to phone. You are a person of interest, high risk suspect, and you allow him access to phone.
So let's not forget that this gentleman, excuse me, I'm using that word very advisedly, came into Nigeria of their own volition. They were not brought in by the Interpol. So if they begin to leverage on things like that to say, look, we came of our own free will because Nigerian authorities said they invited us. I think there's some of the things that people consider or security agencies consider when they also, give certain leverages or when they give, because we've also seen reports of their own family members before now, saying that, oh, Nigerian authorities didn't say that they were going to arrest their people. They only came to answer questions, genuine questions, posed by Nigerian authorities.
Questions of interest to our national security. And beyond that, they've been charged to court. Court granted the NSA the custody for the first 14 days. Because I hear people talk about illegal detention and the parent and the wife talking about of illegal detention. They were duly and properly detained through court order. So they have cases to answer. So the issue of body language or mien does not even arise. They are high-risk suspects, and that should have been accorded the necessary degree of protection.
Well, I think Group Captain Sadiq should be there now. So, Captain, thank you for joining us on the program today. So, lots of questions for security agencies in the country. Many wondering, how could this have happened? In fact, these are the kind of things that in other clients people resign for. So, could you talk to us about what you think might have gone wrong with the handling of this now fugitive?
Thank you very much. Yeah, certainly there is no gainsaying it. It is a bad day at the office for the Nigerian security agencies.
Oh yeah, it's. I think I lost his sound there. We can't seem to. Okay, Captain.
When you look, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
We can hear you.
From what's available from public domain, that the man was allowed to go and pray, and then from there he left. We can walk back and say, now, the issue of going to pray, for whatever faith, is one of the principles of detaining somebody. You cannot deprive him from going to prayers. It is one of the guarantees, actually, that I should give. However, for such a high-profile, person, you would think that what he's going to be praying is going to be followed by security agencies. They will even decide where he is going to pray, because as a Muslim, he can pray anywhere. But that was not done. But after making the initial error of him escaping, to me, when I'm looking at the timeline, is that we didn't hear anything on Friday, we didn't hear anything on Saturday, we didn't hear anything on Sunday, we didn't hear anything till on Monday. That is yesterday that a statement was given. So you are giving a timeline of about 3 to 4 days, which is not good enough. Why is it not? Okay, from the moment, let's assume, despite all the mistakes done, let's assume prayer time. You wait for prayer. Prayer time should not be more than 1 hour. Should expect after 1 hour, somebody should be able to raise alarm that this man is no longer there. If the man is no longer there, then you send out a notice to be on the lookout for him. Of course, the first things you do is the international entry points, whether it is by road or by air or by sea, is to send so that they look out for this person. That is why I see the 3-day lag, even though the government does not tell us what they are doing. But when you say somebody is on the lookout, even the general public ought to know, because it's not necessary that it's only security agencies that will be able to see him. Other Nigerian citizens will be able to locate him if he flash that he's wanted. So I really cannot understand why he left on Friday, but we didn't hear publicly till on Monday. Let's even go backwards again. The issue is being brought that the man has a double passport or double nationality, Nigerian and Kenyan.
Well, Captain Sadiq, the connection is trying to make it a bad day at the office.
Traveling documents he has, whether he has 10, Yes. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I mean, the connection was it just was coming in a little wonky. But go ahead. I think I heard the last bit of what you said. Conclude your thoughts on that one.
So you can even go back. Yes. The issue that he had multiple, to me, is not an excuse. Why? When you are taking such a person, I think everything we should have profiled him. What is his identity? What is his nationality? What travel documents he have? And then, let's face it, for this man to have arranged his escape, he must have had a means of communication. He must have communicated with somebody.
Okay, Captain, we'll come back to you. We'll try and see if we can improve that connection. But part of what we're going to ask him, because what they do in the military, I don't know if SSS does the same thing, Mr. Jaffor. When this kind of scenarios happen, they need to just go back and see how they can review the operating procedure and ensure that this kind of things don't happen again. But this appears to be some very, very basic errors from the way these things are in terms of the handling of this matter.
Well, from the investigation, it's concluded there must be consequences. Because the problem we have in this country...
Consequences for who now?
For the people on duty. The people on duty, like we said, is either negligence or compromise. So when the investigation is concluded and they're able to... This must be a net. It's not something one person can do.
So I'm just wondering, because we've put it down. We've heard from the authorities. The Nigerian government briefed yesterday the Minister of Information. We also heard from the FIRS. I'm looking for what they call the FIRS chief now. Is the executive, the chairman of the FIRS? Thank you. A chairman of FIRS said, well, this doesn't stop their case because they deal with companies and that they are taking Binance to court, and they're still on with that particular matter. So the fact that one of the executives escaped doesn't have any bearing or will not affect their case in any way. But we had the Minister of Information brief on this situation, and he had quite a bit to say they're enlisting the help of Interpol, etc., etc. I'm just looking at the situation right now, and I'm asking, or the question is escaping my mind a bit, but I'm wondering, painting the scenario, looking at the current situation, and I'm wondering how it is that could it also be incompetence? Because we've said negligence, we've said compromise. Could it also be incompetence? Have we ever had a scenario like this where somebody has been in our custody and the person escapes?
Incompetence is one of them, but, you know, negligence, compromise, but for me, the most likely factor responsible for this compromise, which is also part of negligence. Because if it's compromise, you must be doing it for a specific purpose. Either you have been bribed or you have been given a promise.
Yeah, but isn't this too dangerous a situation to be compromising on?
It's dangerous. That's why it's a national problem now. And that the NSA must get to the root of this matter. Investigate it, even if it means turning over the people on duty on that particular day, either to the SSS or to the EFCC for thorough investigation.
Yeah, I just remember now, the Nigerian authorities did say, the minister did say that they have been arrested and that they are currently answering questions. The minister said that. But I am wondering, because ideally in a normal situation, if this kind of thing happens, the alarm that they ought to have raised, the nets that ought to have been spread immediately to be able to drag him in where, you know, when that escape happened, it says a lot about, you know, how quickly it was, because Group Captain Sadiq said he escaped on Friday. We heard when media house heard, I think it was on Sunday.
Sunday.
But they refused to, the authorities refused to, you know, confirm that particular, until they found out that it was totally out of their control and it was out in the media space. So in that scenario, do you also sense a bit of, was it shame? Was it incompetence? What exactly was it? Why would you think that authorities will be quiet about something as sensitive as that until, you know, giving out only an authoritative statement on Monday?
Of course, you know that this is not just a national, but an international embarrassment.
Yeah, but so be honest with Nigerians.
I believe that possibly, I'm not speaking for anybody.
Yes.
But I believe that possibly they must have been walking around the clock to see if the rearrest can be effected. You remember when Charles Taylor also escaped? They are not related issues. Yeah. And the president then, Obasanjo, gave directive. He was arrested at the border and brought back. So the gap, the timeline, I completely agree with it. The timeline was too long, you know, for any. Possibly they were trying to cover up to see if they can get the man rearrested.
Are there any similarities between this escape and that of Charles Taylor?
No similarity. They are not the same.
Two different cases.
They're two different cases.
You know, Mr. Bolarinwa, just to get your further thoughts on this matter now, from the info that you've got, what does it reinforce the mindset that citizens have of security agencies? Because people don't understand why in the first instance they were not even upfront and honest with Nigerians about the circumstances and when this actually happened. And so people citizens got to know much, much later after the rubber had hit the road.
All right, then. When it comes to security handling, it is not really necessary to come public about the nitty-gritty of what is going on. Certain operational steps need to be taken. And the fact that they come open in the air could leak out vital information. If you ask me, I really want to go to the mind of those who are handling this, and I thought that they thought they could handle this quietly and get it arrested. It could be an error on their part. It could be a wrong judgment on their part. But the fact that a fugitive is on the loose and is on the run, except he's a very dangerous fugitive who can be give further danger to members of the public. That is when you see the Inspector General of Police, the Commissioner of Police of the concerned area coming out to say, suspect is on the loose, is dangerous, help us look out for him in this area. But in this particular case, it's a very, very sensitive one. And I think
yeah,
if I want
Mr.
to work on their
pardon me to jump in.
Yes.
They were arrested for economic sabotage in the first place. What is it that you have to lose?
Yes.
The guy is on the run. Your people have compromised. You don't know the gravity of who and what is involved or what else they're capable of. You didn't know that I had another passport. So many unknowns. So if you had told the people, what is the nitty-gritty about saying, look, his escape is on the run, we're hunting for him. If you find him, let us know. What is that? What is the big deal about that? How is that nitty-gritty in the first place?
All right, then. It depends on who information has been shared with first. Let us divide it now. You are talking about public getting to know. I am talking about necessary security operative getting to know. If in the course of getting further knowledge that all security agencies, including the immigration and all the airport security, were not alerted, I will want to admit that it was a gross misconduct and failure on the part of all the concerned security agencies. But one thing I do know, being an operative myself in the past, is that a lot of work has to go on at the background before you come out to say things. How long that is going on for before you come to the TV and do stuff? Probably whoever that is at the helm of this affair thought that communication team with the Interpol to pick him up wherever it's landing will have solved the problem, and it turned out that it didn't work out that way. Could be the case. But at the end of the day, it's all the same. I want to drag you back to the issue of Kabiru Sokoto at a time who escaped. We had the news on time that he escaped. And I think the operative too were doing the needful before they got him rearrested and brought him back to
There was a different operative that were in charge of this case. Okay, let's try. Yeah, we heard you. Let's see if we can get back a group captain, Sadiq Shehu, on this matter. So, Captain, tell us now that this is the case, just getting some channel noise here, guys. Let's see if we can address that. But we'll come back to him. So, Mr. Joffa, let me come to you while we'll try to sort that out. What should we be doing now?
All efforts must be concentrated on his rearrest. The NSA, the federal government, has said they are liaising with Interpol to ensure his rearrest. Don't also forget that this man has some cases in it. So he's an international, I wouldn't use criminal, suspect, as it were. We should gear efforts to make sure he's rearrested, come back to Nigeria. His trial.
Because we don't even know, because you said initially that he's definitely got a network. So we don't even know who those networks, if they are still here, the authorities here. So at what point now should the DSS and the likes be coming into this kind of matter?
Well, like I said before, I believe the NSA must have tasked the State Security Service on to assist in investigation. With the EFCC, I expect a collaborative effort between the NSA's office, the SSS, and the EFCC at this particular time.
When the president came in, he took a tour of some facilities, security facilities, and he said, work together, not at cross purposes. So this suggests that they are yet to implement what he has said fully. And sometimes he even raises more questions. Is this why we're still grappling with Boko Haram?
Well, I think we will not take, because of this particular incident.
These are clear lapses. If the agencies are working together.
It could be the fault of one agency, like the Office of National Security Advisor. If they had collaborated and handled this suspect.
No, what I mean is the concept of someone in those circles always having a price.
Yes. We are saying the same thing. If we had taken this man into proper custody, we wouldn't be facing this. So the collaborative effort is there, but I don't also want to agree that there's no collaboration between all the agencies in some other areas. Like you're talking of Boko Haram. I agree. There are differences, there are issues of political influence. One agency. It's not impossible. There's no way you can see all the agencies work without his rivalry. But it must be brought down There must be, because each agency, because of political influence, will want to say, I'm doing this to impress the political authorities. So it's always there. Cannot be ruled out.
I am just, I'm still trying to wrap my head around, everything that has happened. And I'm sure a lot of Nigerians too were scandalized when they heard this news. And, you immediately start to picture movies that you've watched in your head and how fugitives escape. And you have to ask, is it that,
no, they don't watch movies.
I don't know. Was it that they were that trusting? Was it that they were, big questions really to ask of our security agencies. But I'm wondering, now that this has happened, do you think that we've taken appropriate steps? Because right now, as Mr. Sadiq said, Group Captain Sadiq said, he escaped on Friday. You're just telling Nigerians now that you need our help. Usually, if Interpol had been informed on time, maybe they would have been able to track the flight and pick him up upon arrival, assuming we have a cooperation with the country where that is happening. But to hear about this 3-4 days later, it's a big question as to what really can anyone do, especially with people who deal in crypto. They're dealing with, I don't want to say dark money, but these people know how to move money around without being traced.
A lot can still be done. You remember the case of Mamu. He was not arrested in Nigeria, was arrested in Nigeria and brought back to Nigeria through collaboration. And of course, we'll be in hiding now. That's why the NSA, all the other agencies, work together and see how Interpol can assist. Because as it is now, except he gets another passport, cannot travel now because he knows he's under observation.
Let me ask.
Have another passport.
The Kenyan passport. I mean, he's an executive of Binance. He can easily purchase another passport. Let me ask Mr. Olatunbosun, if there's a role for diplomacy here. Yes, he does have, dual citizenship. I'm just wondering, what role can diplomacy play here? Did you hear me, sir? I was asking if you see a role for diplomacy here. Okay, okay. I don't know if Mr. Olatunbosun is still with us. If you can hear me, sir, I was asking, do you see a role for diplomacy here?
Yes, there is a role for diplomacy, and the quality of the diplomacy we have with our neighboring country is something that needs to be checked. Are we still in cooperative? And if not, is there any work that needs to be done to ensure that we have such diplomatic cooperation? Some suspect has been arrested in Kenya before and in other countries with the help and apt and swift movement of the Interpol. I think there is need for us to review that and improve our diplomatic relationship with other countries in order to boost security in our country in this type of situation.
Well, we have been told now that this doesn't affect the case that Nigeria has against Binance. I think the chairman of FIRS, told us that. So I'm wondering, this is to you, Group Captain. If you can hear me, I'm hoping that you can. Are you comforted by this? How do you see this matter proceeding in Nigerian courts? And do you think that when eventually we get judgment, how do you see it being effected?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I understand the argument that Binance is a corporate body. So with or without the person that escaped, yes, the case can continue. However, permit me to add that now that this person has escaped, what role for diplomacy? We have to recall, this man has two nationalities, British and Kenyan. So we must assume that he goes to Kenya or goes to London. What are the options we have?
All right, gentlemen, we have to thank all of you.
Now, that will depend. There are two instruments that might be.
Okay, just quickly wrap up because we need to go. I thought you had stopped, actually.
Okay.
Okay, we lost that. It just kept on fading in and out. So we have to thank all of you for coming on this morning. Mikey Jofo, former director with the State Security Service, Group Captain Sadiq Show, former Army officer, and Olato Bosun himself, who is the security consultant. Thank you all for coming on today. Well, business is up next, and Larry is on hand to talk to us. I hope it's not about crypto.
Yeah, well, crypto. Larry certainly has an interest in crypto, and I know he'll be giving us details on business morning. Good morning, Ladi.
Good morning. Yes, it's all about violence at this time, and we see the federal government really putting pressure on them at this time. Welcome. Well, it's the second trading day this week, final week in the first quarter of 2024. Time really runs. 2024 is really moving, really fast. It's business morning right here. Let's get to the top stories that set your agenda now. Starting the week, we see the Naira gained against the US dollar, as the NAFEX closed at 1,420 Naira to the dollar, appreciating by 2 Naira 9 kobo from the previous week. Likewise, the NAFEM closing rate appreciated by 23 Naira 45 kobo, fixed at 1,408 Naira for kobo. Amid a relatively calm trading session, well, we see the central bank did issue a circular to the BDCs, informing them that they sold $10,000 to each BDC at a rate of 1,251 Naira to the dollar. So markets are expecting more strengthening for the Naira at this time. Let's get a check on the oil market. Now we see the market's on track to gain for a second straight day today after settling up more than $1 on expectations of tighter supply driven by Russian production cuts and attacks on Russian refineries. We see Brent crude rose by 23 cents to $86.98 a barrel, while U.S. crude futures climbed 28 cents to $82.23 a barrel. So we're seeing WTI, that's the U.S. grade there, starting to gain more and getting more comfortable above that $80 mark at this time. Let's get a check on other industries now. See, the Statistics Department of Directorate of Research, Statistics and Publications released data for the insurance industry. That's for the fourth quarter of 2023. The report indicates that the insurance industry sustained its progressive trend of positive market performance at the close of 2023 fourth quarter, recording a milestone growth to close at $1 trillion, representing about 27% growth compared to the $790 billion. So we're seeing a big move up there. The growth in 2022, that was $790 billion. So 27% up for the insurance industry. Total assets, 2.67 trillion Naira. We see the capitalization at 851 billion. So we see business accounted for about 61% of all premiums written during the year, while the life segment contributed 38.7%, valued at 388 billion. The market also recorded a retention of about 87% for life business, just about 54% for non-life, while the aggregate market average retention stood at 66.7%. All right, so other stories now. See, Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce is working to push for accelerated implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. The Chamber believes that creating a platform for meetings and showcasing locally produced products, the continent can tap into the over 1.2 billion market available to it. Take a listen.
Networking is a key activity for the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce. In fact, I think that's the kernel, because really what we are here for is to link business people in Nigeria and the USA.
Nigeria needs to maximize on the impact of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, that's the AFCFTA. And so the African Foods and Products Exhibition has been put together to showcase the best of African products from various African countries, not just Nigeria. We're expecting exhibitors from West Africa, East Africa, amongst others. Now, we want to see the products that have been put together by these people in Africa and then speak to the world that we are able to measure up with exportation standards. So these are some of the objectives of this exhibition. Also, it's giving SMEs across the country an opportunity to showcase the best of what they do. We've been seeing various collaborations with African organizations across the country and across the continent. So this is indeed one of the many objectives the Chamber has put together to support SMEs.
And now to our first conversation. Well, the global economy took a major hit during the COVID-19 pandemic, leading to about 20 million deaths, a negative global GDP growth rate of 3.4%, and a more than 30-year high unemployment rate of 6.6%. One of the major casualties of the pandemic and global recession was a near collapse of the global travel, hospitality, and tourism industry. International tourist arrivals fell from a record high of about 1.4 billion in 2019. That fell 72% to 406 million in 2020. However, international tourism has recovered, reaching 1.2 billion international arrivals in 2023, and estimated to surpass its pre-pandemic level in 2024. This has been referred to as revenge tourism. Well, joining us now is Obey Ire Okafor, CEO, Edo State Tourism Agency, joining me right here in the studio. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me, Len.
Yeah, so quite an impressive, return we're seeing for the tourism industry at this time. Talk to me about this revenge tourism, that we're seeing at this time, and is it sustainable?
Yes. So let me start by giving a quick background on the problem. So nobody could foresee the pandemic occurring. It caused a medical, psychological, and economic crisis. In fact, the last widespread pandemic occurred in 1918, the Spanish flu. So going back, COVID occurred early 2020, 2020, yes. And it was devastating. I mean, lives were lost, lifestyle changes were made. We're all wearing masks. We had to get accustomed to using hand sanitizers and all. Governments all over the world, imposed lockdowns. So people were frustrated. People were, sitting at home doing nothing. Inadvertently, because we were not moving, we had saved up money. So come 2020 for tourism, there was a dip, there was a hit, 2021. But 2022, beginning of 2022, we started to see a recovery. Governments were easing the lockdowns, restrictions all over the world. But more importantly, people, Nigerians all over the world, people all over the world were suffering from lockdown fatigue. They needed to move around.
I definitely experienced that, for sure.
Yes. So they started traveling with a vengeance. And that's how we have the term, tourism, vengeance and all. So what happened was that the impact of this caused a global phenomenon. So how did traveling and all, revenge tourism, how did it impact the world? If you look at the data from UNWTO, that's the United Nations World Trade Organization, the international foreign receipts for 2019 pre-COVID was $1.7 trillion. So COVID took a hit 2020, 2021. But the recovery in 2022, the international travel receipts amounted to just over $1 trillion.
Right.
Yes. In 2023, $1.4 trillion. That shows you how much people were traveling. And in 2024, it is estimated to reach $2 trillion. So definitely there's a comeback in tourism.
Quite a revenge comeback, I must say. And definitely this is also a time where there's a cost of living crisis, and we've seen, inflation ravage consumers, and we're also seeing, central bankers, raising rates and all of that. And I'm wondering, that would definitely be some kind of headwind, to the tourism industry, if I'm not wrong. But it seems the revenge doesn't care.
It doesn't care. And, people live once, really, and they will find their level, their command of income, Life is hard, so at the end of the day, you need to take a break. Yes, you need to set your mind off the pressures of economy and also the travel industry is here to stay. The hospitality industry is here to stay, definitely.
All right, looking at the data now, we're seeing activity, with some of the countries, benefiting from this surge. In 25 years, we've seen the likes of Dubai. They've grown from a desert to become a top, tourist, destination at this time. Talk to me about how, countries like Nigeria, countries in Africa can actually, get to this same level, exporting tourism.
Okay. So I guess the question is, what is the impact of tourism on the global GDP? Okay. So in 2022, it was $7.7 trillion. Wow. That amounted to 7.6% of the global GDP. In 2023, it was $9.5 trillion, and that amounted to 9.2% of the global GDP. People travel for different reasons. It could be leisure, it could be business, it could be medical, but people move. That's one of the characteristics of human beings. So this impact is gone beyond the countries that we're used to. So for example, the US, the countries in Europe, the UK, it's now gone across, the impact has gone across most of the countries in the main six continents. So for example, 6 out of the 10 tourism-dependent countries are island nations. What are island nations? So you have Belize, you have Jamaica. So what have these countries done differently? They have taken advantage of their sun, sea, and sand tourism. So they have beaches, natural water, they have good weather. So they've invested heavily in infrastructure, hotels, so you have brand name hotels, in their leisure activities, and that is what has boosted tourism. So the impact can be felt worldwide.
Right, and looking at this now, see top leading tourism spots, at this time, and the massive revenue brought in. We've seen North America, Europe, Asia, 135.2, that's for North America. These are good numbers. We've seen, countries like Dubai and Madrid, Spain.
Yes.
Lovely tourist attractions at this time. And one thing about, most of these tourist spots is they have this history, when it comes to, culture.
Yes.
Rich culture and all of that. And Nigeria, we have culture.
Yes, we do.
In Nigeria, and those states, for one. Talk to me about how, we can harness all of these, Nigeria's, culture, Africa's culture, to push tourism even bigger.
So history and culture are very attractive factors when it comes to tourism. So if you recall, when Queen Elizabeth was celebrating her Platinum Jubilee, billions of pounds were spent in England by local and international tourists on accommodation, on food, on souvenirs, regarding the Jubilee. But in Africa, our history is deep and is unique to us. In Egypt, for example, you have the pyramids. So the history behind the pyramids is that the pharaohs were expected to be gods in the afterlife. So in the pyramids, they were buried with materials that they would need. So for example, gold, jewelry, some statues of them. So tourists pay a handsome fee to come to Egypt to look at those pyramids. Coming back to Nigeria, in Edo State, for example, our unique history is a source of competitive advantage to us. Yes, it is. So Edo State did not just begin as Edo State. We started as the Benin Kingdom. Going from the Benin Kingdom, then we were part of the Mid-Western region. Then from the Benin and Delta provinces, they formed Bendel State. Out of Bendel State, they cut out Edo State. So for example, did you know that our University of Benin was once referred to as MIT?
MIT?
Midwest Institute of Technology.
Right, not the MIT we know there.
No, so Edo has evolved. So our history is peculiar to us. It cannot be replicated by any other person. We also have in Edo State the Benin Moat. So it's referred to as one of the largest man-made artifacts in West Africa. Yes. And then also, it was built in the 14th century as a defense fortification against invaders. So it's also a UNESCO World Tourism Site. So that is unique to us. And what the Edo State Tourism Agency, in collaboration with MOA is Museum of West African Art, which I will talk about later, in Edo State. So part of our responsibility, amongst others, is restoring the restoration of the moat and all the tourism sites for people to come and see.
Right, quite interesting. And definitely, if you're trying to sell tourism, you also have to sell that your country is suitable, for tourists, at this time. And, we've been getting a lot of negative outcomes at this time, especially when it comes to security. And I don't know how you can, push tourism, if your country is not seen as, secure. So I want to believe there are also talks with security agencies to make sure that Nigeria is secure, so that when tourists come here, you come here and you feel safe.
Definitely.
Because that is key to
Yes.
push tourism.
Yes. Tourists must feel safe to travel out of their usual environment
Right.
to come to Nigeria or anywhere else. So, and that is what countries like UAE, Dubai, the Middle East, they've invested heavily in security. Yes. So you can see the low crime rates of those areas. Also, they've invested in infrastructure, brand name hotels. We have in Edo State, for example, Protea, Radisson Blue will soon be ready. Most of the tallest buildings in the world can be found in the Middle East and Asia.
Right.
So there's a reason why they invested in security and infrastructure to attract people to leave their usual environment and come to them. That is the essence of tourism.
Right.
So we have to pay attention to the security issues in Nigeria. We also have to expand our scope of infrastructure.
Right. And I know you did have a mega concert in Benin City that was organized by your agency, and I'm
Yes.
sure in December, because I've heard from some Uber and Bolt drivers, they did talk about a lot of just got back. That's people from abroad, diaspora, coming back home to actually have fun.
Yes.
How was it? The mega concert, and I'm sure the state made a lot of money from that.
Yes, I'll try to be as modest as I can. The turnout and the success of the event of the mega concert was mind-blowing. So what we did, we flew in some of Nigeria's best artists. So we had Pato Rankin, we had Flavor, we had Goya Mena, we had our very own DJ Sose and other artists. And we invested heavily in the sound and surround. And, so the artists were happy to perform. And also the crowd was wowed by the performance and all. But that's part of tourism. Music is a love language. Everybody responds to music.
Right.
And that's what we did. There was free popcorn, free drinks, and free finger foods. But more importantly, we couldn't have achieved it without the help of our corporate sponsors, the biggest of whom was Dangote. So we also had sponsorship from Fidelity Bank, from Intercontinental Distillers Limited, and also MTN. Also, during the concert, we did a raffle draw for people from the public to pick, The first prize was an all-expense-paid trip to Ivory Coast. That's the picture of the winner there.
Right.
Second prize, all-expense-paid trip to Ghana. Yes. And the third prize was a 3-day all-expense-paid holiday in our Protea Hotel, Select Amoton in Benin City. Yes.
Quite interesting.
Yes.
Well, I wish I won something, definitely, but yeah.
But a week later,
Right.
a week later, we had another concert. It was a national jazz concert.
Okay.
So the Edo State Tourism Agency, in collaboration with Jazz Culture, which is a jazz group consisting of different artists and jazz lovers. So we did a national concert. We had renowned artists like Yinka Davis. We had Dede himself. We had Sammy Sachs. So it was wonderful. December was a glorious time. People came home.
So I guess it was a dirty December, as they
Yes.
would refer to it, right here. But look, definitely, we're seeing 2024 start off with, rate hikes, as usual. That's in Nigeria here. We're seeing the Naira, trying to stabilize a bit, at this time.
Yes.
Talk to me about what you're seeing, for the tourism industry in 2024 into 2025.
Okay. Nigeria is a beautiful place. Nigerians are very interesting people. We always draw attention wherever we go. We've come a long way. 20 years ago, we had only about 8 airports. Now we have 32 airports, 5 international airports, which are regarded worldwide for global transportation. So I know that Nigeria has invested a lot in infrastructure and, somewhat in security, but there's a lot more to be done. There are different sectors that we still need to invest in. For example, rail. They're doing a good job. I know about the Warri-Itakpe train that goes through Edo State, the Lagos-Abeokuta train. So all these are modes of transportation for tourists. Then aviation industry too is doing quite well. We have a number of airlines that fly locally. Arik, Ibom Air, Green Africa. That's one of my favorites because on-time performance. And we have Air Peace as well. And Thankfully, Air Peace is going to start flights from Lagos, London, and back. So that will bring our brothers and sisters in diaspora, and also, I guess, the foreign tourists as well. Ibom Air flies to Ghana. So they will also bring the Ghanaian tourists as well. Nigeria is blessed with tourism sites. In Edo State, we are developing a cultural district, a 3 square mile. And then MOA, Museum of West African Art. That's going to be a center of excellence for archaeology and artwork. Lagos State is progressive. So they have the Badagry Slave Museum. It was a point of no return, point for European merchants dealing in slaves. That's deep history. We have the Agongon Festival in Kebbi State. It's a fish festival. We have the Calabar Carnival, which is an annual carnival every year. Akwa Ibom, one of my favorite states. Right. It's a beautiful place. So Akwa Ibom has Ibeno Beach, is the longest sand beach in West Africa. Ika Ipene is a raffia city. So there's a lot of history. It's also a commerce space. So I know in conclusion that government is committed to diversifying its income away from oil. Tourism is one of the viable means of achieving that. That's the truth. So we must invest in security. Right. People must feel safe. And we must invest in infrastructure by commodification of tourism. What do I mean by that? We make tourism a product by utilizing, our culture, our tradition, by, leveraging them, and then we make it a commodity to earn profit. What does that do to us, for us? Development, economic development. It also puts Nigeria on the map, center of the map of global tourism. So the economy is recovering slowly but surely. Right. Do I believe in the future of tourism and hospitality in Nigeria? Yes, I do. Yeah, and I believe too, because definitely, I love tourism money because, it comes in and it stays in. You don't have to worry much about repatriation, when tourism money comes in. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us. That's Mr. Beyi Ire Okafor, CEO, Edo State Tourism Agency. It was great having your perspective. Thank you for having me, Ladi. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, now, so we're going to get a check on the bond market. We observe pockets of mid to long-dated maturities with emphasis on the 2031, 2034, 2053 bonds. Bids hovered around the 20.50, 20.65, and the 19.00%. Interest on the short-end maturities, that's skewed towards the 2026 and the 2027 papers. If we take a look at some of the markets now, the close we saw yesterday, we see the bond market, the fixed income market, not looking so bad at this time. And definitely we're going to be talking to Chuka Nwachukwu. It's decision day right here, because we know that the MPC, they did start the meeting yesterday. Remember the last meeting, we got that massive jumbo hike there, about 400 basis points. We've got predictions for today. Some are saying 150 basis points, some say 100, and maybe possibility, of a hold, because we had a very big one, in the last meeting. So I'm going to be talking to Chuka Nwachukwu now, Head Asset and Balance Sheet Management at UBA. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Morning, Ladi.
Yeah, so it's decision day. What are you expecting?
Like you mentioned, expectations are high. I, for one, feel that MPC should maintain. The reason being that it's just 1 month after the last MPR increment by 400 basis points. And we've seen a drastic improvement. We've seen a lot of development, positive developments ever since that last time. At the time, we had about at the last time of last meeting, the naira was trading around the 1,800 levels. Currently trading around the 1,300, 400 levels. So that's a drastic improvement. I believe that MPC should just give a bit of time, probably just allow maybe like a month or two to see how to see further improvement in the last decision taking. However, market feelers is that there's going to be, if at all there's going to be any hike, it'll probably be around 100 to 150 basis points. I do not think that they will be so aggressive as the last time, about 400 basis points. So I still feel that it's for me personally, I feel it's safe to just maintain for now.
Maintain. And how would hold stance? How would that impact, the fixed income market?
So presently, the fixed income market is highly being impacted by part of the decision taken at the last MPC meeting, which obviously has to do with liquidity. For the past 2 to 3 weeks, the system has been in debit of between 2 to 2.5 trillion. There was a little bit of respite sometime last week where we had some coupon inflows that came in about 700 billion. But as of today, it's in repo about 45 to 50 billion debit. And so that has actually affected the trading on the fixed income market. Presently, the market is a bit quiet. On the T-bill side, for example, we saw the last auction was on Wednesday last week. We saw a drop, about 37 basis point drop in the 1 year paper. It dropped to 21.12. Tomorrow there's an NTB auction as well, and then we about 161 billion will be on offer. We still see about it depends on what happens at the MPC meeting today. That will determine. So the market is generally quiet due to expectation of the MPC meeting. And so for the bond side, we've seen, like you rightly mentioned, we've seen activities on the shorter end of the curve, the 2025, 2026. 2030, 31 and 34. These papers are the next auction as well. So we've seen a bit of activities, especially bearish sentiment in anticipation of what the outcome of MPC meeting will be. And then, of course, traders trying to create liquidity in order to meet the obligations.
Right. Now, let's get a quick check on the FX market. We did get that circular from the CBN that is sold to BDCs, $10,000 each at 1,251 naira to the dollar. So is it safe to say we should expect maybe about 1.5% higher, than this level in the coming days?
I think what CBN has tried to do, and they've done very well, is to bring confidence back into the system, and that's what has really greatly improved, activity in the FX market. The circulars that have been passed, not only that these circulars are being implemented, very well, but also CBN is making sure that, the players are also, keeping to their own part of the bargain. And so, sending this intervention to the BDC, and then, of course, monitoring them and, making sure that, they stick to the rate, is something that, that has brought a lot of confidence. And I believe that if this continues, we see rates, even go further than, 1,200, levels.
So I guess at some point, maybe we should expect sub 1,000 naira to the dollar. What are you seeing?
Yeah, hopefully we should, and that I believe that's what CBN is working towards. And again, the issue with the FX is not only on the monetary aspect. I keep saying this; it's also the physical aspect how to be addressed. So we need to be able to produce more crude in order to be able to to be able to achieve our quota in terms of OPEC and, of course, the oil benchmark as well. And so if we're not producing enough and then we're not able to sell enough, we will not be able to, to earn the expected, foreign exchange that we deserve. So what CBN is currently doing is the monetary aspect of it. And it's working. And then hopefully we see better results in the next couple of weeks.
Fantastic. Hoping for the very best. Thank you so much, Chuka Nwachukwu, Head Asset and Balance Sheet Management, UBA. Thank you. All right, so that was close for most of the markets here, talking about the FX market and the equities market, 0.49%. That was a drop. We're looking out for the close. after trading today. That's Business Morning. I hand things over now to the Sunrise Daily team.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed. As we've seen there, we're joined now by Obong Victor Atta, former governor of Akwa Ibom State and a member of the organizing committee of the Patriot. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you for calling me.
Well, some time ago, recently, as a matter of fact, eminent Nigerians, governors, legislators, leaders of thought all had this meeting, and they're demanding for a new democratic people's constitution instead of amendments. Because we do know that the National Assembly embarks on this amendment time and again. But this group of eminent Nigerians say not an amendment or new constitution. And so I saw that they listed several things that had to do with security, different aspects. So start by telling us, if you will, I mean, how is the Patriot, how do these eminent Nigerians suggest that we go about getting a new constitution? Because many lawmakers will easily tell you, no, we are here to amend it, and by way of amendment, we can get the so-called new one that is being talked about.
So you want me to start with the procedure for getting a new amendment rather than perhaps talking about the constitution, why we saw it was bad?
Yes, that's the good. Start about why you think it's bad in the first place.
If you permit me, we had only 3 resolutions at the end of that colloquium. And the first one has to do with why we should have a new constitution. And the first resolution says the National Dialogue concluded that the prevailing 1999 constitution and its brand of presidential system fosters politics of alienation and increasing appetite for state capture among the ruling elites, the exclusion of a large section of Nigerian citizens, leading to disenchantment across the country, while also asserting that the Constitution, by its flawed origin, lacks legitimacy, which it cannot acquire from any number of amendments. I want you to know this question of flawed origin. And let me speak a little bit about that, why it is flawed, and therefore should be changed. The Constitution we have today was promulgated as a military decree. It's not a people's constitution, by no means. But apart from that, it was the origin of it, the drafting of it, was faulty. And believe me, we gathered there to honor a great man who passed on, may God rest his soul in peace, Professor Benoit Boise. He was one of the biggest advocates for the conference that Jonathan finally held in 2014. And he had given an interview in which he said, the title of the interview was The Mistake Rotimi Williams and I Made. And it takes a brave person in Nigeria today to admit that they did anything wrong. But he admitted clearly that he saw the country being fragmented. There was a lot of hatred among different people, and people daunting, even agitation for splitting up and secession and so on. So when they were invited to help the military draft the Constitution, I want you to know that even though promulgated by the military, it was drafted by the civilians mostly.
Yeah.
When they came to draft it, they saw that the best thing to do was
Justice Nikitobi was key factor there.
One of those, yes. Get a strong center that will bind and hold the people together. And he was honest and brave enough to admit that that was a misguided, those are the misguided concepts. Because it brought so much power, so much money, so much authority to the center that the strive for the center rather than create unity, is creating greater disunity. And it's making everybody struggle to go and capture that center. Look, when you talk about parties should be divided by ideology. But today, all the politicians are in a salad bowl. You divide it vertically, call this one PDP, call that one APC. By the time you come back next time, mix the same salad bowl, divide it horizontally, call that the same people moving from here to there because trying to capture. All they are doing is trying to capture this power. But not that they have any ideology by which they want to govern the country or anything. And it excludes everybody. You talk about, oh, I'm the one that made so-and-so governor. Or a governorship candidate is elected, and so-and-so will provide him with the deputy. How is that a people's government? So this government doesn't include, it's not at all inclusive. It does not permit for participation. It just does not allow everybody to feel that they have even a government or a representation. You are just governed, you are ruled. It's so authoritarian, in fact, dictatorial. So that's why we think this constitution is what promotes. I think people say it is Einstein who had said that only a mad person who does something over and over again the same way and expects a different result. Well, we have been trying this constitution, trying different people, different persons. It's not working. So it is obvious that the constitution is not working. So that is why we believe there has to be a new constitution.
If I could just read some statement that was made at the time. I mean, yes, the committee was headed by late Justice Nikki Toby with Dr. Suleiman Komo as deputy chairman. But because yes, we also know that committee, they went up and down the country, they collected memorandum, they excluded military formations, for that matter. But part of what he said upon submission was, quote, in the light of the memoranda and the oral presentation of the 1999 draft constitution, it is clear that Nigerians basically opt for the 1979 constitution with relevant amendments. He went on to say they want it and they have copiously given reasons for their choice in the different memoranda and oral presentations. So, we have recommended to the Provisional Ruling Council the adoption of the 1979 Constitution with relevant amendments from the 1995 Draft Constitution. So this gives the impression that the people themselves were the ones who brought about the Constitution, which the group now says is a military decree.
But the people that actually drafted it are admitting that they did something wrong. They went on a misguided concept. 1979 Constitution is very different from what I'm talking about, the 1999 Constitution.
Yes, it was in 1999 because he, from the memorandum they got from Nigerians across board, he said the summation of the opinion was that whatever we're going to do in 1999 just mirrored the 79. And that was the presentation that they did with 1999 Constitution.
That was totally wrong, and it was the wrongness of it was admitted by the key player in the drafting of that constitution. And I can tell you that's why Nigerians are so very dissatisfied with it, because they don't feel anywhere that they belong within that constitution. And it's promulgated by a military and advanced by the military and being administered in a way that the people cannot even participate in. So we find it completely wrong and unacceptable, and we feel, we've given our own, feel that the 1963 Republican Constitution and the result, we had a draft constitution that came out of the 2014 conference. That the draft constitution that came out of the 2014 conference, along with the 1963 Republican Constitution, are what we should base our concept on. Those were actually prepared by the people and brought about by the people, Constituent Assembly, not promulgated by the military.
Well, if you say that what we're looking for right now is the Constitution we had in 1969 or 63?
As a basis for a new constitution.
Yes, but in 1979, from what we were told, I wasn't alive then, what we were told So there was a Constituent Assembly that actually came up with the 1979 Constitution.
Let me be honest with you. The real constitution drafting or the conferences that have discussed constitution in Nigeria, as far as I'm concerned, are the 1994 conference and the 2014 conference.
So there was no Constituent Assembly for the 1979 Constitution?
I don't know that there was one, to be honest with you. The one I know was there was one for the 1960 Constitution, which lasted 7 years. From the time Anthony now removed the motion that we are ready for self-governance, and the North said they were not ready, that was in 1953. It took 7 years, 53 to 60, for a constitution to be fashioned out, a constitution to which every Nigerian, if you wish, properly represented, subscribed to. And it became a constitution that everybody was willing to live under. And we lived under it, and we grew under it until the military came and interrupted. It only changed from 60 to 63 when we became a republic. But this 1963 constitution is very much the 1960 constitution, but a Republican version of it, if you like. And
okay. I was just going to say that we had a very, you had a very successful outing there. The colloquium was a success, given the level of eminent Nigerians who attended it. And I know that usually when conversations like this start, for it to gain ground, for it to gain momentum, it has to be something that is agreed amongst the elite. For the longest of time, it would seem that all of this talk around changing the constitution, getting a brand new constitution, has been great talk around amongst Southern elite. How has it been trying to bring members of the Northern elite on board? I did see there the former governor of Sokoto State was a current senator right now in the 10th Assembly. But I'm not seeing so many. Maybe I didn't look critically.
Well, Hakim Baba Ahmed was invited. I think he participated virtually, and he is the political advisor to the vice president today.
Yes, he did.
So yes, it starts somewhere.
Yes, I'm just going to say how much more. I mean, how much of the Northern elite are you bringing into this conversation?
Very much so.
And are they seeing the need for it, as you are, as you're saying?
You don't have to gather everybody together initially to say, do you agree? You sit here and say, what do you think is good? You go to the Northerners, what do you think is good? Then you bring the two together and say, do we agree that this is best for us? Because if you listen today, I think you must have listened to Professor Jega. Professor Jega is not saying anything different. The former INEC chairman is not saying anything different. Several others I can name for you who are now agreeing in the North. So when there is a meeting of minds in the South, there's a meeting of minds in the North, then you bring them together. And then you have a... As a matter of fact, you bring me to something I didn't want to go into. But this way, the compatriots came out. You know, we had observed that the patriots was largely Southern-based, if you like. And the compatriots was now to bring together the North and the South, and we made an effort. I am the chairman of the compatriots. So from patriots to compatriots back to patriots. But we are trying to see that the whole country comes to an agreement on what we need to do with this constitution, which is to change it.
It's not
to try to amend it, because it's beyond amendment.
It's not the first time that this sort of conversation has happened. As you rightly recall, the 2014 could I say Constituent Assembly was like the latest attempt, and that came after months of conversation, and even the duration of that 2014 national conference, nothing else was news in the country apart from the conference that was happening right here in Abuja. So the conversation has been on for so long. The question now is, what do you think is different this time around that will bring the thoughts of the compatriots, or patriots, if you like, to materialization?
The difference is, I may illustrate from a laboratory experiment we used to make. You hang a piece of rubber. You hang a weight at the end, you take off the weight, it snaps back up. You hang a heavier weight, take it off, it snaps back up. Then you put it, the weight, you know that by the time you take it, it has reached its elastic limit. It doesn't spring back up. Everybody's getting to the elastic limit now. Everybody, the north, the south, not in this section anymore. The entire country is just about getting to its elastic limit, and something needs to be done. And everybody's now ready to have something new done to keep Nigeria together.
Have you been able to get any buy-in from the executive?
Now we're getting into question of procedure. Well, first of all, even then, let's look at even in the question of the content. We want to clearly state, as we did at that colloquium, that in a pluralistic country like Nigeria, the only thing that can save the country and keep it together is if we can have a true federal arrangement. People pick at aspects of it, like state police, like resource controls, but truly what we want is a true federal system that allows the federating units to be coordinated with the center, not subordinate to. Then you have your own independence. You can grow the way you want it to. Believe me, under this system, God rest his soul, Awolowo would not have been able to do what he did in the West, where you must take permission from the center before you do this. Must take permission from the center before you do that. If you want, I can give you a simple example. I went to Akwa Ibom. I decided after having studied Lagos that Lagos is what it is because of its airport, its seaports, and its industrial estates. And I said, I want to have an airport, I want to have a seaport. I may not have industrial estates, but I want to build a science park. But I want to have 24-hour constant power to make sure all those things function effectively. My president said I cannot have an airport. It was a big struggle before we were allowed to have the airport, for which Ibome is now famous for, you know? A big struggle. Beyond that, I went and started a power plant. Why do I want to have a power plant? Nigeria has a power policy. But I don't understand the policy. It's not giving my people power. What's wrong with my... In the end, I built a power plant. But having built a power plant, a law came out. If you generate, you cannot distribute. Now, I'm convinced, sitting here, that if I had been allowed to distribute that power and boast, as I wanted to, that Akwa Ibom is the one state in Nigeria where there is 24-hour constant power. I bet you several other states will have followed that example.
But that has since changed.
It has just been, well, by the year, just before Buhari left office, he changed it. He said, now, when you generate, you can distribute.
Indeed. And we've seen states who have that facility or that infrastructure leverage on that, like Abia states now, you know, with the work they're doing with geometry.
Several others will now follow.
Yes.
But look at how many years we've been set back by just a law that's made by a defective federal arrangement.
But this has now been made possible via an amendment.
Yeah, so it's just starting.
So why not go through the path of an amendment rather than a very difficult and torturous
amendment of what?
Of the Constitution.
No.
Because that was made possible through the amendment of the Constitution.
No. Amendment of just a law. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that a state cannot have power. It's just a law that was made. That's the difference. Because when we now get into the procedure, you see that the National Assembly is not elected to make constitution. The people give them the sovereignty to go and represent them, to administer according to the Constitution. But the Constitution in the first instance should be made by the people for the people. They are there to administer, not to give us the new Constitution. So we are not talking about amending a Constitution now. We are talking about a new Constitution. So it is not the responsibility of the National Assembly to give us a new Constitution. That's why I like the idea of the buy-in. Yes, we must have the national buy-in. And better if it can be executive. If the president can have a buy-in, can say a law, all we need is for the National Assembly to pass a law to say, yes, let there be either a referendum or let there be a constitutional assembly to write a new constitution, which you can now subject to a referendum. And the people will have a constitution made by the people for themselves. Believe me, it is very difficult to get anybody, even a housewife, to live with a husband if they do not agree on certain principles. But in this question, we have not really had any agreement on any principles. And that's why everybody's feeling, oh, well, break away, break away, break away. It's all because of discontentment. If we have people get together and agree, thrash out the terms and conditions under which they want to stay together, as happened between 53 and 60. It does not have to take anything like that long. 6 months rather than 6 years. This thing, Nigeria can have a new constitution put to the people, approved by the people, and we take off from there.
That appears to be part of the procedure that you want them to adopt, because we understand that this has been submitted to the National Assembly and the President, has it?
We are putting together a team to go and canvass the position. Nigeria, you see, you submit something to somebody, he may even read it, he may not read it, so it doesn't suit his interest, he probably threw it away. We now want people to fully understand why this has to be. To let people understand that an amendment is not the issue. It's a new constitution that is needed. And the content of the new constitution must allow for inclusive governance. It must allow for a measure of independence. It must allow for true representation by the people. Therefore, Balawa didn't have to win election, not even all of Bauchi, not to mention all of Nigeria, to become prime minister. He wins it in a community. And believe me, when President Babangida brought his A4 option, that was the closest to true representation of the people. We want a true representation of the people so that people will know that they are exercising their sovereignty, which honestly belongs to the people. Sovereignty belongs to the people.
Well, I know that, you were governor under this same constitution, which we now have, the 1999 constitution. And I remember, at least I was alive during that time, you swore to uphold and protect the same constitution. You had to operate under it. You didn't have much of a choice, did you?
Yes.
Yes. So, I mean, I go back to the point, because I see here.
And upheld it, by the way, much as I opposed several aspects of it.
Yes.
Do you want me to tell you one? Sorry to have interrupted you. Even in the administration of local government, we are now talking about independence of the independence of local. I said, what are you talking about? What you people are doing? You cannot give independence to local government. What happens today? Local government laws are made by the National Assembly. The local government don't have a house of assembly, if you wish. But we elect councillors. We elect a chairman of council. That chairman of council appoints from outside the councillors that have been elected. From outside that group of people, he appoints supervisor for agriculture, supervisor for works, supervisor for education. So I asked a question. Why did we elect councillors? Just to go and share money at the end of the month. No responsibility. They don't make the laws that govern the local government. They don't do anything. So I said, I'm practicing a parliamentary system at my local government. My party was up to, I'm doing anti-party. And I said, explain to me why I shouldn't. No, so I didn't even elect a chairman of council. We elected councillors, and when they got there, they elected from among themselves head of council. And among themselves, they selected who will be supervisor for agriculture, supervisor for works, for
so
whatever.
Certain things are still possible, even in spite of the flaws of this constitution.
I was going against the law.
You
don't want, so we want a law that makes it possible for you to operate properly. So, we don't want you to, not every individual had that courage.
But from what you've seen today, if you were to, because you're preparing some documents to submit to National Assembly and the President,
yes,
what do you see as the biggest impediment to fulfilling this?
To be honest with you, and I don't mean this in any bad way. I hope nobody takes it as a criticism or something. The only possible obstacle they can be would be members of the National Assembly. And it will be only because they probably want to protect their interests. Because it will affect some of the ways things they do things now, some of the things that are happening, some of the benefits that they're enjoying today. But I would appeal to them to understand that if there is no country, there will be no National Assembly to give them the opportunity to enjoy these things. And in any case, for how long do they enjoy these things for which they'd rather have the country destroyed? Many of them don't come back after the first tenure. Some come back after for a second, and that's all. So let us have a country that works. There are people in Parliament in Britain that have been there year after year after year after, because the community keeps sending them back. You know? It doesn't happen here. As I told you, the salad bowl before, it's a fact. They jump from, the only reason they jump from here is because the opportunity is not here anymore for them, so they go there thinking there'll be an opportunity there. It is not right. We should get a country that works and should be governed by a constitution that people believe can work.
Obon Victor Atta, former governor of Akwa Ibom State and member organizing committee of the Patriots and also the compatriots, as he told us. Thank you for coming on this morning. Let's take a look at some messages that came through from you. Samuel, this is your response. You're talking about response time, actually, about security. You say 137 children aged between age 5 to 15 years moved from Kaduna to Zamfara State. Is a school in Kaduna a border village? Let's learn from these kidnappers. Their dexterity, even our burglary proofs have improved when rebels were still able to get in. The evil people can teach us where to improve, you say?
Yes, indeed. We should learn lessons. Well, Binance fugitive, this is from Bashar Kende Shomoye. He says this is a case of pure compromise. The complicity is beyond the people guarding him, as a few highly placed Nigerians are involved. I hope this case will not be swept under the carpet. Can we all be more patriotic in this country?
Well, Femi, also talking about the same matter, says, if this happened in a Western country, I doubt that it's just the low-level guards that will be facing sanctions. Big heads will certainly roll. But this is Nigeria. The security minions will take the fall while their bosses are rewarded with national honors and plump post-employment positions.
I hope that will not be the case. Well, Dixon Eka says, over the death of residents, over palliatives. The killing of many helpless Nigerians through stampede in attempt to get palliative is an unfortunate one. But what is it that the government wants? Many of us have spoken so loud against the so-called palliatives, which can never reach everyone that needs it. Why should government remove all the subsidies in Nigeria and float the naira and throw many into poverty only to generate more money to be shared between the states and federal government, and they distribute some so-called palliatives to the detriment of lives of hungry people? Well, he goes on, but he says this policy should be reviewed to save lives. That's from Dixon Eka.
Okay, so there you go. That is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Yourself. Goodbye.
Your feedback is always appreciated. Thank you for writing in. I'm Maokpe Ogun Yosef. Have a great day.